Okay, so imagine this. It's Tuesday afternoon. You've just walked out of a conference room or maybe just clicked leave meeting, and you are buzzing. You spent the last 20 minutes pitching a new initiative, a new software tool, a workflow change, something you've been working on for weeks. You looked the boss in the eye, laid out the data and the response. It seemed good.
Good is such a dangerous word in that context.
It is, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
there were smiles, there was nodding, and then you get that phrase, the one you've been waiting for. That is an interesting idea.
Yeah.
You go back to your desk thinking, I nailed it. Change is coming. I am an innovator.
And then,
Then?
and then, tumbleweeds, nothing, silence. A week goes by, then two. You send a polite email, get a vague reply, and eventually you realize the project is dead, but you have no idea when it died.
And you're left wondering, but they said it was interesting. They said we'd revisit it.
Exactly. It's a classic case of cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
You're replaying the tape in your head,
Mhm.
and the audio just doesn't match what's actually happening, or rather, what isn't happening.
Right. And that frustration is exactly what we're unpacking today. We have a stack of fascinating material here that breaks down workplace communication, and it's all focused on one very tricky, very pervasive concept, the soft no.
This is essential survival training. I mean,
Yeah.
the sources we're looking at today argue that if you take everything at face value in a modern, particularly English-speaking office, you're going to waste a massive amount of your time.
You'll be chasing projects that are already ghosts.
Exactly.
And it's not just wasted time, is it? It's the confusion. Especially if you're new to a corporate culture or maybe a non-native speaker, the disconnect between the words, which sound so polite and open, and the intent, which is basically a door slamming shut, can be maddening.
It creates so much anxiety. You start doubting your own perception. Like, did I miss something? Am I crazy? But the materials suggest this isn't random at all.
There's a pattern.
A very clear pattern. A hidden lexicon of rejection that, masquerades as possibility.
So our mission for this deep dive is to be your translator. We're going to go through these specific phrases, the ones you've probably heard 1,000 times, and decode them. But before we get to the decoder ring, I have to ask, why?
The why.
Yes, the why. Why can't a manager just look you in the eye and say, no, I don't like that idea, or no, we aren't spending money on that? Why the whole charade? Is it just cowardice?
Well, it's easy to call it cowardice, but the research points to something a bit deeper. It's rooted in the psychology of aggression, or really the avoidance of it.
So a direct no feels aggressive.
In many work cultures,
Right.
especially in the US and the UK, yeah, directness is often coded as aggression. A flat, no, we won't do that, feels like a rupture in the social fabric. It's harsh. It just stops the conversation cold.
And the goal is to keep things moving smoothly.
The goal is to maintain a facade of consensus and flexibility. You want to protect the relationship, and you want to protect the ego of the person pitching the idea.
So they think they're being nice.
In their heads, yes. It keeps the doors sort of ajar. It prevents the awkwardness of a direct confrontation. The source material highlights this paradox where polite does not mean positive.
We confuse the two all the time.
We absolutely do.
Mhm.
We think because someone is smiling and using soft language, they must be agreeing with us. But often, that politeness is just a tool. It's a way to anesthetize the rejection.
Which is so frustrating. I mean, I just want to shake people and say, just tell me the truth. I can take it. I would much rather have a hard no today than a maybe that drags on for 3 months.
I think most high performers would agree with you. Efficiency depends on clarity. But the social utility of the soft no, so to speak, is that it allows everyone to save face. The rejecter gets to feel like a benevolent leader, and the person who got rejected leaves the room without feeling totally crushed. At least not until they realize a few weeks later that nothing is happening.
Okay, but let's stop letting them get away with it. Let's get into the specifics. We've sort of categorized these into a few buckets. The first one is what we're calling the wait-and-see tactics.
The classic stalls.
Right. These are the phrases that sound like responsible delays, but are, in fact, dead ends. First one on the list is a total classic. I'll have to get back to you on that.
The pocket veto. Love that term.
It sounds so reasonable, though. It implies, I need to check my calendar or I need to look at the budget. It makes it seem like they're going to go do work to help you.
And that is the surface, meaning
Yeah.
yes. And look, to be fair, sometimes it's true. Sometimes people genuinely do need to check. But context is everything. More often, I'll have to get back to you, just translates to, I don't want to approve this right now, and I definitely don't want to argue with you about it.
It's a way to get out of the immediate pressure of having to make a decision.
Precisely. It pushes the rejection into the future where they don't have to look you in the eye. They just put the idea in their pocket and there it stays.
So how do we know the difference? How do I know if they're actually checking the budget or just hoping I forget about it?
The litmus test is time. Silence is data. If they say, I'll get back to you, and a few days pass, that's just normal. Business is busy. But if weeks pass with absolute radio silence, that was a soft no. The silence is the answer.
That's a hard pill to swallow. So what's the countermove? Do we just wait by the phone? Or do we pester them until they break?
Neither. Waiting is passive, and pestering is just annoying. The sources suggest using what they call a polite follow-up. You force the issue, but gently.
Just a quick, hey, checking in.
Something like, just checking in on the status of this. Short and sweet, you're testing the waters. If you send that, and they still avoid giving a clear answer, or they just ghost you entirely, you have to accept the no.
And move on.
Move on.
Oh.
At that point, pursuing it further moves you from persistent to tone-deaf. You have your answer. It just wasn't spoken out loud.
Okay, let's look at the cuzzer of that phrase. This one happens in meetings all the time. Phrase number 2. Let's revisit this later.
The parking lot.
The parking lot. I feel like that's where good ideas go to die.
It usually is. When you're in a meeting and the agenda is tight, let's revisit this later, is the ultimate tool for a manager to just park a discussion they don't want to have.
But again, it sounds so promising. Later implies there's a future time where we will talk about it.
But notice that later is not a time.
Yeah.
Tuesday at 3 p.m. is a time. Later is a vague, fuzzy concept. The deeper meaning here is almost always not now and probably not ever.
It's seductive, though, because it gives you hope. You think, okay, we're just pausing. I'll get ready for the next round.
Right. But if you want to know if it's real, you have to use the counter move immediately.
In the room.
In the room. That feels a little aggressive.
It doesn't have to be. The advice here is to just pin down a timeline. When they say, let's revisit this later, just ask, sure, when would be a good time to revisit? Should I add it to next week's agenda?
Oh, I see. You're sort of calling their bluff. You're forcing clarity. If they say, yes, put it on the agenda for next week's Team Sync, then great, it's real. But if they start to wobble, if they say something like, oh, let's just see how the next few weeks go.
And we'll circle back. That's code for, please forget you ever mentioned this.
Exactly. If they can't give you a clear time, you should expect no action. It just helps you manage your own expectations so you aren't waiting for a meeting that's never going to happen.
Okay, let's move on to a different category. We've talked about delays. Now let's talk about what the articles call the gentle walls. These are phrases that sound like they're describing a logistical problem, but they're actually total roadblocks. The first one is, that might be difficult.
This is a classic,
What's
especially
that?
in more understated cultures. That might be difficult.
To me, honestly, difficult sounds like a challenge. If a boss says that, my brain immediately hears, this is hard, but if we work together, we can solve it. It sounds like an invitation to problem solve.
And that is exactly how enthusiastic employees get trapped. They hear difficult and think, I love difficult, let's go. But in the hidden language of the workplace, that might be difficult is, well, it's rarely an invitation. It's a massive understatement.
So what are they actually saying?
They're not saying it's hard. They're telling you the answer is no, but they're just skipping the part where they list all the reasons why. They're signaling that the barriers, political, financial, whatever, are just too high and they have no appetite to climb them.
So if I hear that and start firing off solutions, oh, we could do this, we could cut that cost. I'm just annoying them.
Potentially, yeah, because you're solving a problem they don't actually want to solve. You're trying to open a door they are actively trying to lock.
So what's the move? Just walk away.
Not necessarily. But don't start solving right away. The counter move isn't to fix, it's to dig.
Yeah.
The sources suggest asking something like, I understand. What specifically would be the main concern? Or even, what would make it easier?
That's good. What's the main concern? It forces them to stop being so vague.
Right. And if they can't or won't answer that, if they just shrug and say, oh, it's just a lot of moving parts, then the wall is permanent. Give up. But if they say, well, the main concern is the budget overlap with Q3,
Yeah.
now you have a real objection. You're out of the land of soft no's and into a real negotiation.
Which brings us to the next gentle wall, which I actually find is the most refreshing of the bunch. Phrase number 4. I'm not sure this is a priority right now.
Yes. Of all the phrases we're looking at, this one is probably the most honest.
It feels honest. It stings a little, but it's clear.
It translates very simply to something else matters more. And this is a really important distinction for you to grasp. When you hear this, it does not mean your idea is bad.
That's the hard part to separate, isn't it? We tie our ideas to our own self-worth.
We do. But this isn't a critique of quality. It's a statement of logistics. You could have a brilliant world-changing idea, but if the company is bleeding cash or focused on a different product launch, your idea just isn't getting the oxygen.
I think people take this one so personally. They hear not a priority and they think, you don't value my contribution.
And that's a mistake. So the counter move here is crucial. Do not argue about the merit of your idea. Don't say, but this is so cool. That doesn't matter.
Because you're arguing against the wrong thing. You're arguing quality when they're talking about bandwidth.
Spot on. So you pivot. You ask, okay, I understand. What is the current priority? And then, and this is the master move, you see if you can connect your idea to that priority.
Oh, that's smart. So if they say, our priority is cutting costs, you reframe your idea as an efficiency tool.
Precisely. Actually, this software will automate X and save us Y amount of hours. Now you're speaking their language. If you can't connect it, you shelf it. But at least you know why. You're not fighting a ghost anymore.
Okay, we have one more category to cover, and honestly, this is the one that scares me the most, the false positive. This is the one that breaks hearts. Phrase number 5, interesting idea.
The most dangerous 2 words in a meeting.
Why dangerous? It sounds like a compliment. If someone says my idea is interesting, I'm flattered.
Because it triggers a little dopamine hit. We crave validation. When a boss says, interesting, we translate it as good. We hear yes. But interesting is a perfectly neutral word. It's non-committal. It's often just a filler word people use when they have nothing else to say and they want to move on.
It's a verbal placeholder.
That's a great way to put it. It's a polite way of saying, I hear you speaking, I acknowledge this is a thought that exists, but no thanks.
You know, now that you say it, I've definitely done this. Someone tells me a long story about their weekend, and I just go, huh, interesting. And in my head, I'm thinking, please stop talking.
Exactly. It's a conversation ender masquerading as a compliment. So you have to look for the context clues. If they say interesting idea and immediately change the topic, that is a soft no.
Interesting idea. Anyway, looking at the spreadsheet.
That's a kill shot. The idea is dead. But if they say interesting idea and then ask a follow-up question, interesting idea, how would that work with the sales team? That is real interest.
So the key isn't the word interesting, it's what happens in the next 5 seconds.
Yes. Engagement proves interest. A generic adjective proves nothing. The source material also warns about the nod. You know, the slow, thoughtful nod while you're speaking.
Oh, I love the nod. The nod makes me feel like a genius.
Don't trust the nod. Nodding often just means, I understand what you were saying, not I agree with what you're saying. We constantly confuse comprehension with agreement.
This is, wow, it's a lot to process. It feels like we're all playing this elaborate game where no one is showing their cards.
That's a great analogy. And if you don't know the rules, you're going to lose your chips.
So let's try to bundle this into a survival guide. If you're heading into a meeting tomorrow, what are the main things you need to remember to protect yourself from these soft no's?
Okay, I'd boil it down to 3 things. First, pattern recognition. Start listening for the structure, not just the tone. Listen for the vague delays, the subject changes. Don't just listen to how nice they sound. Listen to what they're actually committing to, or not committing to.
Right. Pattern recognition. What's number 2?
Number 2, gentle follow-up questions. Don't let a polite wall stand unchallenged. If they're vague, ask for specifics. If they say later, ask when. You can do this politely. It's not aggressive to ask for clarity.
I think that's the fear, right? That we'll look pushy, but actually it just makes us look professional.
It shows you take your own work seriously. And number 3,
The big one.
don't assume yes without clear agreement. We need to define what a hard yes actually sounds like so we know what we're listening for.
Yeah, let's contrast it. We've heard the soft no's. What does a real yes sound like?
A real yes uses action verbs and ownership, it sounds like. Let's move forward with this.
Where I approve this budget.
Go ahead and start on Monday.
Go ahead, approved!
Music to my ears. See the difference. Those aren't about the idea being interesting. They're about action. If you aren't hearing those specific commitment phrases, you're probably in uncertain territory.
That is such valuable advice. It saves so much wasted effort. You know, it feels like understanding these hidden meanings is just a massive step toward professional maturity.
It is. It's about sanity. When you can decode the soft no, You stop taking it personally. You stop waiting for emails that aren't coming. You can navigate the room with so much more confidence because you know the score. You know when to push and you know when to fold.
And that confidence is what we all want. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with a final thought. We've talked about how all this politeness is designed to protect relationships.
Right.
But here's the question I'm left with. At what point does all this politeness actually damage trust?
That is the big question. If I can never get a straight answer from you, eventually I'm going to stop trusting anything you say. The polite facade cracks, and what's left underneath is just, well, it feels like manipulation.
Something to think about the next time someone tells you your idea is interesting. Maybe the kindest thing we can all do is just learn to say no.
Indeed, a clear no can be a gift.
That is it for our deep dive today. We hope this helps you decode your next meeting. Join us next time where we're going to flip the script and talk about the phrases that make you sound instantly more confident. You won't want to miss that.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.